Timmy Joe reviews anything.
Reviewing computer parts on YouTube.
That's
Woo! Gotta be pumped on that, right, Will? Computer parts! Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Yeah! Oh, I'm fucking the competition. Hi there, it's Timmy Joe. I'm a bad man with video cards. I recently had a comment where a man was like, I really like your videos, but I hate how you treat your hardware. Well, you know what? If you don't like it, there's the no, I'm kidding. Stay, please. I need validation. Anyways, RX560 review. Pretty much a brand new one, too. I mean, it's a cutie. It's a cutie with a little graphics card. Why do I got all these laid out? Well, boom. Well, she's humming along, overclocked, and running a little bit of Unigen. I figured I'd show you a few monstrous video cards that are very much overshadowed and outperformed by the little devil here. Now, I know, let's just get the elephant out of the room. Yes, there is a big case to be made for getting GTX 1050 over this little guy, or 1050 Ti. Yes, but I've got some key points to make about why this thing's good. And sometimes you might just be in the situation where you have one of these available, whether it's used or whether it's whatever, and then you know, you'd rather pick that up, or maybe you have a FreeSync monitor, which is my first point. FreeSync support, sure. 4 gigabytes of VRAM out the gate. Booyah. I actually even have a version that doesn't have an external power connector, and it performs admirably. So yeah, so this is a dual GPU, massive video card. Granted, it's like 8 years old now, but a GTX 295. We'll see a review for this at some point on the channel. Blows this thing out of the water. In fact, it doesn't even have DirectX 11 support, but more to the point, 2 GPUs in this thing, and its combined VRAM is 1,792 megabytes of RAM. So this has way more than double. Poof, out of the question. Let's talk about, you know, one that actually, an AMD card that actually might be worth picking up if you could find one. Only 1 gig of VRAM on this 6870, and you know, garbage. Doesn't even touch it. We've got 2 left here. We've got the original Fermi, the one I cook eggs on. Actually, I got 2 of these now, so I might do a little SLI at some point. But yeah, just kicks this thing's butt. And then we got the Sapphire 7850. We'll see a review on this soon too. Budget card I thought might be a good idea. It'd probably be kind of like a step up from this guy. 2 gigs of VRAM on this thing. This thing kills it. So let's look at the overclock. We've got a little overclock here. She starts off at around 1150 to 1200. I've got mine up another 100 or so on the core to 13. I've seen people even go to 14, especially if you have one that has an external power connector. But you know what? I actually did a little bit of research and found that most people say there's not much difference, maybe 1 or 2 FPS, when you're pushing it that extra 100 megahertz. Now, you can max out that memory slider, though, and get some improved performance. But is that 4 gigs of VRAM on this thing, you know, worth it? Debatable. 2 gigs minimum these days. But is this thing going to do way better than a 1050 because a 1050 only has 2 gigs? No. A 1050 still beats this, even if it swaps, you know, a little bit on the edge over to your system memory. This is just a more powerful GPU. But it's close. This is close, especially when you fire up a little overclock. So let's go ahead. We'll shut this off. We'll go over here. We'll shut my recording off. And then we'll get to what I'm talking about here. The RX 560 in 2018 with 5 of the newest / most played games of the last 6 months or so. Okay, we're going to look up some benchmarks in just a few moments, but to my point, boof, this would be the AMD Radeon HD 7850 which would be, of all the graphics cards I just had on the table, the big ones with the crazy copper heat pipes and stuff sticking out of them, it would be the most powerful, actually. And it's, you know, still got a little heat pipe on there. And it gets a first-rate graphics score of 5175, okay? So let's look up, I didn't do this yet. I haven't even put this in a system, and I don't even know if it works. But I do know that my my GTX 480, my NVIDIA Fermi card, I have tested that on my own system. Boof! And on this exact same test bench, it gets a graphics score of 4135. So what does the little RX 560 do here? Aboosh! It does 7,528. A boom! That's a good score. That's actually a really good score when you consider my itchy eyeballs. Sorry. It's actually a pretty good score. Relatively, you know, compared to, you know, GPUs of past, like this being a budget option, you know, from a little while ago, this would probably be in the area of the R9 270. I recently put in a budget system and sold, and you know what? This beats it. Just by a smidgen. So, boom! What are the specifications? Well, this one is, there's like 5 versions of these. I don't know why, but this one has a overclock of 1234, a gaming mode, yeah, an overclock mode of 1234 boost, and this one has all the compute units. Now, maybe you don't know, maybe you do, but if you're looking at a 560, you have to make sure that it's not this weird cut down version that AMD started selling with less compute units. It needs to have 16 CUs. There are some with like 12, I think. They will not have the performance I'm showing you here today. But this one's an overclock version. You know, it's a one that's got the full kit and caboodle, and it doesn't do too bad. A boof. So yeah, she's actually not too shabby on Newegg right now. This is still fairly expensive, $175 for this card, but we all know we just got over the GPU apocalypse, and prices haven't exactly busted down. But I could see this card in the coming months dropping well below $150, and at that price, it certainly is great for the budget gamer, and it is a, you know, definitely a well-earned upgrade over the APUs that AMD just launched, the 2400G. So this will definitely do better than that if paired with, you know, a similar processor. So there's that to consider, and with that dedicated VRAM and that dedicated GPU, it's going to be better, as we'll see for benchmarks in a second. If you're looking to do online gaming, or maybe you know, record some of your gameplay or something like that, this will be that better option than that APU. Mind you, it does have a minimum, you know, well, it's around $150 if you look for a good deal on one. So let's go ahead and actually show you some benchmarks. We want to check out what this thing will do. I didn't run like my full test suite. What I was more concerned with was the very demanding titles that just launched. So we're going to see Far Cry 5. We're going to see Final Fantasy that just launched on the PC. Did a little bit of benchmarking with that. We're going to look at Wolfenstein, even though most people for some reason don't like that game. I actually understand. It's kind of boring. But we'll see that in there too, as that's a Vulcan title and should do very well on this. And then when we come back, we'll do a little summation. And of course, during the benchmarks, we will look at Fortnite benchmarks, as well as PUBG. So fling it out, Timmy Joe. Woo! Woo! So, you love how I handle my hardware, you fuzzy little guys. Hi there, we're back. So, she's cute, you know, it's the smallest one on the table, and it's the most powerful. So that's pretty cool. Now, let's go ahead and take it apart. Hi. And we'll just have a look at, what's under the hood. And we'll talk benchmarks. What I did was I didn't put MSI Afterburner on with the FPS numbers on initially for any of these titles, because what I wanted to do is with my FreeSync monitor over there, I just wanted to let the games load whatever they thought was best for settings. Now that only works in some games. Sometimes you just have to kind of maybe guess at what would be available for it. But I wanted to see how it felt without really scrutinizing the numbers too much. And I was like really pleasantly surprised. It was so worth opening this thing up. I was pleasantly surprised to see that all the games felt really good. Even when in Final Fantasy I loaded it up, it didn't feel amazing, but it felt like console playable. Look how tiny that freaking thing is. That's goddamn ridiculous. Boom. So yeah, it didn't feel half bad. Far Cry I've been playing Far Cry with this card for the last like 3-4 days, and it's been totally playable at high settings, getting near 60 FPS, especially when paired with my FreeSync monitor, because I have a Samsung 4K monitor. It has built-in FreeSync. That is a thing that you'll see on a lot of budget monitors, and it really helps out with a little tiny baby GPU like this in getting some seriously decent numbers. So although it's $150 graphics card, you can't expect too much for it. But if you're considering some used options, you can't beat a card that doesn't require you to change out a power supply. If let's say you're buying an OEM system like a Dell or HP, with a Core i5 in it, plop this in there. It's gonna freaking game almost as good as the benchmarks you just saw. And you're going to have a wonderful time playing. And yes, you're going to have to limit yourself a little bit to medium settings, or, but 1080p is always going to be an option. And it's not going to be half bad at all. And what was best was PUBG played fine at medium settings. I was getting near 60 FPS, and I was not ever worried about skipping frames, especially since PUBG has been pretty optimized lately, even it seems on these little guys, on AMD GPUs. But, in Fortnight, buttery smooth at high graphics, no problem at all. And then you could play your new games like, Far Cry 5 at pretty decent settings too, and you're not going to have, anything to complain about. So, all in all, this is an amazing little budget card that you can pick up. And if you buy the right one with the right compute units, you're not buying the skimmed down version, and you're buying one that, doesn't have an external power for a low-end system, or, go ahead and buy one. But this is a pretty brinky-dink cooler. In fact, all of the ones on here that are, a lot hotter, suck a lot more power, have giant copper heat pipes running through them. This thing beats it out again, and it has just a solid block of aluminum cooling it with 2 fans. And there are definitely versions of this thing that have even less for cooling on it. This one gives you that little bit of 1300 megahertz on the core clock, headroom. So it's pretty cool. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. I wanted to tell you that if you go below right now, there'll be a link to this very one. The Gigabyte one's like over $200, which is just stupid. But this should be pretty much an equivalent GPU to this. It's an MSI version. 4 gigs, everything's there. The compute units are there. And she's only $163. Not bad at all. Let's check it out. It's an MSI, and you could plop this in any system, and away you go. Babs your uncle. And if you're in the market for a brand new GPU, and you're a little worried or there's scarce used stuff in your area, and you're a little worried about buying a used graphics card, you could pick this up, and as long as you're paying that $150 around, you're going to be pretty satisfied. And I think it'll hold its value in and around $100 for the foreseeable future. Unless something crazy happens with new NVIDIA or something like that. But, for the most part, she's a dandy little guy. So, I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. Hit up that Amazon affiliate link below. If you're going to buy one of these, pick this one up. There's lots of other stuff, actually. I have a little page where you can go see some things I've reviewed, some things I recommend. If you're doing any buying on Amazon, that really helps out the channel. It's a huge up. And always, there's Patreon. We're near $100. Go get me on Patreon, for God's sakes. Help the channel out, help the channel grow. And, you know, you can always send me some old hardware, too. Lots of people do that. This was a submission by a viewer, and I got to thank him like crazy, because this came from overseas, for God's sakes. I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching. Tons of stuff upcoming. Freaking amazing stuff. Here's a preview. Do you know what that is? Because I didn't until recently, and I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with it. I'll see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching. Woo!